Hello, Free Thoughters. Luis Fernandez back at it again at the Free Thought Experiment. If you all liked and want to check out all my other videos, go ahead and like and subscribe and follow our YouTube channel or follow our Twitter page at the Free Thought EXP. I am your host, Luis Fernandez, and today I want to go over a video that I've been seeing around on Twitter that has kind of rubbed me in a good way and kind of rubbed me in a bad way. And we'll go over that in a bit. Like I said, this whole thought process that we're going through is to make sure that we can take a breather on things and not look at political affiliations or political thoughts, but to just take a breather, step back, and think, okay, was that good or bad? So, without further ado, I want to go ahead and look at this video from Vic. He does a rant on Twitter, and like I always said, this is opinion-based, but we got to make sure that we keep emotions out of the facts. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the video.
Fuck does that help, you greedy cocksuckers? Hey, what do you hear? What do you say? My Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Google Plus, your sister's ass, the Pony Express, a very ticked off Vic here. You know what ticks me off?
What ticks you
Having
off?
to tell the government what to do because they have their heads in their asses. Now follow me. There's something that's been bothering me, so I'm just going to say it now. Dear
Up to now, I totally agree with him. I do think that government doesn't know how to move. I think that the government sucks at doing its job. They do move really slow when we need them to move really fast. That's something we have to accept. So he's already rubbing me in a good way. Let's just say that.
government. We understand that the virus is not your fault. It happened. It is what it is. I'm not going to get into that idea that maybe you could have acted sooner. We can deal with that when this is all over. But here's the deal. We need a real fucking plan. It was the right move to make everyone stay home because that's the only way to deal with a virus like this. But here's where I have a problem. So, you told us to shut down non-essential businesses. You told us to go home and quarantine. You told us we have to keep social distance and stay inside. But you told us you would help. So where is the fucking help?
I agree with him. The virus, it could have been prevented. It could have been prevented. But you can't stay on the hypothetical because you can look at European countries. A lot of people didn't see this kind of virus coming out. In the past, presidents before, like Obama and everyone else before him, Bill Clinton and such, they were saying that a virus or a pandemic could be something in the likely future, but there was really no action done to prevent that from happening. So by saying yes, lives could have been saved if we would have acted sooner. But at the same time, a lot of people didn't take this seriously because there was a lot of misinformation out there from the WHO and from China and stuff like that. And it's just something tragic. I do not think that the WHO was doing it on purpose. I think they were just misinformed by something. And it's science. And just like science is always evolving, right now it's not the time to be pointing and blaming and see what we could have done. Right now we have to make sure we know the information and we're moving on from there. But he does make a good point that even though it could have been prevented, let's get past that. And that's a good thing he's saying. Let's get past that. We can look at that later. But the government did mandate businesses to essentially just close down, shut down, no source of income, no way to pay their employees. And I'm not talking about the big corporations that they should have a savings account, but a lot of these small businesses that employ a big chunk of the U.S. workforce, they don't have that big savings to cushion them to not work for a couple of months. They could be out of business in a couple of weeks, and he's true. Where's the help from the government? There needs to be a help from the government. Because it's like, I've made this analogy that people say, well, they should have a savings account. What's different? Because this is basically, it's not like a natural disaster or something like that, business can still remain open and do what they got, even if they earn a little bit less money, it's still free enterprise. But here what's happening is the government is mandating you to close everything down. It's like a truck. It's like if the government ran a truck through your house and then saying, I'm not going to pay for that. Which is not something that should be happening. Businesses should be compensated. People should be compensated because you're essentially forcing us not to work, forcing us to close our businesses down, which is a good idea to stop the spread and flatten the curve. We'll get in that later, but let's keep listening.
These checks are what they are. I mean, let's be serious. I'm not going to turn away $1,200 because number one, if you're going to give it to me, I'm taking it. And number two, it's our fucking money, not yours. It's ours. We paid that in taxes for everything we do every fucking day. So, okay. Look at the typical family: mortgage payment, healthcare payment, car payments, electric, water, garbage, phone, blah, 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 blah. So maybe the $1,200 covers the mortgage. But what about all the other costs that we have each month? This $1,200 thing isn't doing shit for the normal working family. You want to help? Here's one idea. Tell the fucking banks.
And he's right. He's completely right. I agree with him. I'll use my family, for example. Thank God my mom is working. But if my mom would have had, if her business, which she doesn't own it, but let's say the business she works at had to close down, she would still have bills to pay. And we didn't even qualify for the 1,200. I did not qualify for 1,200 because she claimed me as dependent, and I'm a college student and all this stuff, and I'm over 18. And she didn't get that much money because she makes over 70. I believe it was $75,000. She made over whatever they listed, so she only got like $700. Now there's another side to that. There's a flip coin where you saw a bunch of people that didn't really need that much money get all that money. For example, I have an aunt that she has not worked a day in her life, and she ended up essentially getting like 1,200 base from the stimulus thing, base pay. Plus she has like 5 kids, so she got $500. So that's thousand. That's like almost $2,700 that she got. That could have gone to someone else that actually really needed, because she on the top of getting 2,700, she got 2,700 from the stimulus, plus she got food stamps, plus she got a whole bunch of other welfare benefits and unemployment benefits, I believe. But if you like how he said, it's not helping the working family because you made it for the low class. That's okay. But what about the middle upper class, or like the middle upper class that that's barely enough to cover their rent? Or if they live in New York, 1,200 is barely, it might not even cover your rent. So it was something that I saw there that was a really mismanagement from the government. And it's true. It's the only thing I disagree with him. It's our fucking money. Excuse my language, excuse my French, but I disagree with him there, because even though we all pay taxes, we shouldn't be entitled to that, because everyone pays taxes. And a majority of the time, the people getting benefits from there are people that, get from Social Security, get from Medicaid. So the taxes that we pay, it does get spent a lot somewhere else, which is why a lot of people have been saying that we need to start cutting some programs, or moving some programs around, or changing some programs around, because we're spending so much money that when a pandemic or a real emergency comes around, we don't have that cushion, and we have to spend money that we don't have. So that's something that we have to look at too. But we shouldn't be entitled like it's our money because we pay taxes. That's a really bad thing to do. I do like that he's fired up. I feel like if you're fired up, people will listen to you. But you just have to make sure that what you're saying when you are fired up makes sense, and it's like it's factually correct. But let's keep going, because it's not that bad what he's saying.
And mortgage companies to stop all mortgage payments at this time. Just stop them, and don't give me that 3-month furlough bullshit. How does that even make sense? So someone who lost their job because you said to stay at home doesn't pay mortgage for 3 months, but in the 4th month they have to not only pay that month that's due, but also the 3 months they owed in full because it was furloughed? How the fuck does that help, you greedy cocksuckers? Someone was just unemployed and not earning money for 3 months. They weren't earning money. Hello? Now they just start back to work, and all that money magically appears so they can pay the 3 months in a lump sum. How are they fucking paying that? Are you fucking idiots? Look, it almost makes sense that they can stop.
And I agree to him in a certain extent. I do see the point that he's trying to make about how people have not been working, and how are they expected to pay those 3 months. At the same time, you got to think about the renters. I mean, when you think about renters that rent these places and have, these rents in place, I believe they're not these rich, people. They have to have some source of income. So you're looking at the consumer, or you're looking at the consumer and the buyer that wouldn't have income coming in. So how would they pay for the rent? But at the same time, if they're not paying rent, the person renting it, the renter, they won't be having any income as well. So you have to think about those 3 months. You can't just keep on going without paying rent. I do like the idea he comes up with afterwards. It's a pretty good idea. But again, you do have to address that issue that the renters aren't getting the money. And now he does talk about mortgages too. And that I completely agree with him. I don't think banks are like extremely rich right now. I do not think that banks should be worrying about getting a lump sum in 3 months. They should just put that at the back end of the loan, which is what he's going to be talking about. And I agree with that a lot because, but then again, banks are being really flexible during this time, offering some kind of payment plans to move them around, not just furloughs. And I'm pretty sure as we continue to go through this pandemic together, a lot of businesses will be making that option of changing it up and making it flexible for people. We just gotta wait and see. And if they don't, then we have to push for that to happen, like what he's saying right here, which is a good idea that he's gonna be talking about. So let's talk about it.
Paying the current mortgage due for the month when they go back to work. But they can't pay the prior 3 months. They had no income. So here's the idea. Just add the 3 fucking months of the furlough to the back end of the loan. So if they had, let's say, 19 years and 6 months left in their mortgage, just add the 3 months. So now they have 19 years and 9 months. How fucking hard is that? You'll get your money, you shitbags. It's just delayed. The working stiff wins if you do that. It really helps. It actually helps. And what is up with these banks and lending assholes? I mean, come on. You literally make billions of dollars in profit quarterly. That's every 3 months. The last crash was 10 years ago. So you have 10 years of massive profits and you need a bailout after 2 weeks of a shutdown? How come we, the people, have to save for a rainy day, but you save nothing?
And I agree with him right there. It's true. These businesses, they make, and he's talking about these big corporations, which it's not a good assumption because when we look at these programs being in place, we're not mainly thinking about the big corporations. We're more worried about the small businesses. But there are things in place that were for big corporations that were big bailouts, like the airline industry, which I agree with him there. By bailing out these businesses, we basically incentivize them to not be putting money aside for savings because they're just going to be like, oh, the next time, the government will just bail us out. So when thinking about this, we have to be really smart about it and say, how do we do this? My idea that I've been bringing up to my friends in finance and in government classes is that, what's it called? Loans would be a better idea. Loans would be a better idea because you would have to force that company, that corporation to pay back that money. So they have to be a little bit more conscious and that, yeah, well, we're getting free money, but we have to pay it back. Another thing would be kind of doing some regulations like putting in place some savings, kind of like Social Security, but instead of getting that money and spreading out to a bunch of other people, kind of getting that money and putting it in a separate bank account. That way they can have access to it. That specific company, a specific bank account for a specific company, so they can have access to it on a rainy day if they cannot do that on their own. Which, like I said, I'm pretty sure business should be able to do that on their own. But I think if you keep on doing these bailouts, they'll just get used to be getting bailouts and handouts from the government all the time. And the free market will basically turn into crony capitalism where you will not have competition because whenever there's whenever business going down, you expect the government to bail them out, which is not really a really good idea. Now, I agree with him with the mortgage thing, put them on the back end of the month. But again, we're not only talking about mortgages, we're also talking about renters and rentees. Now, these renters, most of them are not wealthy millionaires. A lot of these people are real estate agents that are barely starting out, or maybe they're barely starting out, going on a real estate venture. And, that's one of their main sources of income. And now they're going to be going without income for 3 months. And then they also have bills to pay. Just like the rentee has bills to pay, the renter has bills to pay. So you can't really stay in those 3 months. But I agree with him. Big banks should be able to move those payments to the back end of the loan. I mean, that shouldn't be a problem. That shouldn't be a problem, and I think banks should look into that. And I'm not sure if they are doing it, but I do know that banks have been really flexible with people during this pandemic. A lot of companies have been flexible with people. A lot of people are working together. That's something we have to understand, that this is a global crisis, and it's not just a free-for-all. People are working together, and corporations are working together. And if we act like they're not doing it, I mean, that doesn't benefit anyone because that person might not know the benefits, and we're lying to them, and they can't take advantage of those benefits because they don't know they exist because we keep lying to them. But again, I agree with him. Everything. Big corporations should not be getting bailouts because they'll get used to those bailouts, and that's not the purpose of free economy. That's not the purpose of capitalism. That's crony capitalism, and that's really bad. That the companies should not be getting used to that because they shouldn't be leaning on taxpayer money to be bailed out when they need it. It's the same thing like with state governments. They shouldn't need to be bailed out. They shouldn't be using coronavirus relief packages to use it to pay off their debt from past years. That's something that we shouldn't be looking into.
Every fucking quarter that you made $3 billion in profit, not income, profit, and all that means you paid all your salaries and bills and everything you needed to pay to run a company for 3 fucking months. So every time you made $3 billion in a quarter, if you had just put $1 billion in the bank, you'd have $40 billion in the bank after 10 years. That's not even including interest. But no, you greedy cocksuckers have to get bailed out again from our taxpayer money, and then you shit on us by not giving us a real break on our mortgages, credit card bills, or car payments, or anything, and the government allows this. We get fucked. We bail you out, we get fucked. Rinse, lather, repeat. You dirtneck fucking pieces of shit should have had more than enough money to keep paying your workers and give everyone a break in mortgage payments the way I said for the time being. And again, I'm not saying to wipe the slate clean. I'm saying to just add the missing mortgage payment to the back end of everyone's loans. Do it for everything. The car lease is now 3 months longer. The credit card payment is now 3 months longer. The mortgage payment is now 3 months longer. You want to help the American worker, you can eliminate all payments due until this is over. That way, unemployment and stimulus checks would only be needed for food. That is what the American family needs now. That would help us. You greedy cocksuckers and you government lackeys who suck the balls of the big corporations and shit on the people are just as bad. Shame on you all. There could be a real plan in place, a real plan to get people through these next few months, a real plan to be testing, a real plan to allow workers who are considered non-essential to not worry about catching a virus and losing their house. Do you do the right fucking thing, you peckerheads? Having to tell the government what to do because they have their heads in their asses, that's what fucking ticks me off.
I wanted to mention this before, but I didn't. But somewhere around the middle of the video, I like how he has his jacket zipped up and then he like zips down his jacket because I don't know, maybe it got too heated. But again, I agree with him. I agree these big banks should put these mortgages, look at an idea of putting these payments at the back end of the loan to help out people like that. And I'm pretty sure maybe that's in the talks. I'm pretty sure people are doing other things. We have to look at the things they are doing as well, not just of what they aren't doing. Like I said, it's easier said than done when it comes with government. There's a lot of bureaucracy in place that makes it really hard to get anything done. Things would have to get passed by Congress, get approved by the president, get approved by the Senate. You know, then even then there could still be judicial reviews that have to be put in place by the courts if it ever gets to that point. It's not just simple of there's a good idea, because any good idea always has its flaws, and we have to vent it out. Like that idea of freezing rents. Well, if you freeze rents, you also got to think about, you know, the renter, how they're going to get their income. That's if that's their main source of income, you're also damaging them. You know, it's not just we can't just give money on a stimulus package every day, because that's unsustainable. That it cannot just happen like that, because it's not like the government gets our taxes and then they hoard them in this big bank or something and hold it there forever. That's not the case. You know, when we pay taxes, the majority of that goes to, you know, welfare programs like Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, and stuff like that. Another portion goes on defense. You know, there should be talks in the future, and there was talks back then, you know, cutting back on some programs. I'm okay even cutting some money off from the defense. I do think defense is important, but we should be talking about, you know, reducing a little bit of it, you know, a little bit of everything. That way we can have a surplus, and so that surplus can cushion us. So whenever we have a disaster like this, we can get that money from somewhere. We don't have to be borrowing or printing money, because the solution is not just to print money. We have to have some way. And if people aren't working and there's no tax revenues, it's only a matter of time before we start printing money and inflating our dollar, or we just the country goes bankrupt, or, you know, people start buying our bonds, because that's a majority of how the U.S. is getting this money is just by selling debt. We basically sell bonds that people want, and thank God right now they're kind of going up. But I remember I think a couple of weeks ago or last week the demand for bonds was down, so that's a little bit scary. We can't just rely on that, you know. We can't just rely that people are going to be wanting our debt, even though it's safe. You know, you never know what can happen in a pandemic. But again, I like some points that he's saying. There are some fallacies in some of his arguments that he's making. But this is just starting a conversation. I mean, if government can just sit down and stop politicizing this stuff of, if we don't get this, we're not going to plan. You know, No, that like this stimulus package that just got passed by the small business for the small business loans, there was a lot of mismanagement because a lot of people the Democrats were arguing for more money for, solar panels and this stuff that kind of didn't really matter, but they were kind of holding it back. And then the Republicans also had their flaws because they were arguing for more money for bigger corporations and more money for businesses, but y'all missed the big picture that was to make sure that what the plan that we have now is really good so that it's not mismanaged. And this happened again with this new stimulus bill that just got passed. They wanted to add a whole bunch of stuff. They added stuff about hospitals, which I do think that hospitals should get more funding and there should be more funding for testing and stuff like that. But I do think it should be done separately. You should do a bill for everything and not just and not just put a whole bunch of stuff into one bill. Every bill should be organized in a way that it is well planned, well debated, and well scrutinized. That way that it doesn't come out and have so many flaws. Like the last bill that came out for the small business loans, where big corporations were getting these loans. Big corporations that should have had savings. Big corporations that should have money. These small business loans should be going to smaller businesses, and it shouldn't be going to big corporations. And like I said, yelling, I like that he yells. It's funny that he yells. I think he yells not necessarily because he's angry, but I think it's because I see some of his videos here and he's yelling in all of them. I don't think he's necessarily angry. I think he just uses a tactic so people will listen, and it's worked. It works because, like I said, this has been all over Twitter. Anyways, I appreciate y'all for listening. Like I said, please like or subscribe. Share the video with your friends. Let me know what y'all think. I welcome criticism here in the Free Thought Experiment. So go ahead and leave a comment below on our Twitter page at FreeThoughtEXP or on our YouTube page or our YouTube video. Let us know what y'all think. Any ideas that y'all think of how the government should handle this pandemic. And stay tuned for more videos. Thank y'all so much, and I hope y'all enjoy the rest of your day.